do that. So good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Welcome to the EMDR Intensive Podcast. Thanks so much for being a guest. I'm excited to talk to you. And let me introduce you to the people who might be listening to us. Hopefully somebody's going to listen to us, right?
Hopefully.
Right, hopefully. So Kelly Smyth-Dent is our guest today. And Kelly's a licensed clinical social worker, EMDR trainer, published researcher, and the founder of Scaling Up. Kelly stands at the forefront of EMDR therapy and training on a global scale. Her work has taken her across continents, from France to Ethiopia and from Bangladesh to India, as well as throughout the United States, conducting EMDR basic and advanced trainings. As a valued member of world-renowned EMDR specialist Dr. Ignacio Herrero's esteemed research team in Mexico, Kelly contributes to the cutting-edge development of EMDR therapy. She serves as a head trainer of specialists, ensuring that the facilitation of EMDR therapy adheres to the highest standards of excellence and consistency. Kelly's authentic and innovative approach to running Scaling Up allows for a large community of high-quality trainers and therapists who share similar values and mission to work together to make therapy more accessible and affordable globally. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to talking to you and finding out more about the work that you do, which is a lot of work in the world. Thanks for making it a better place.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do that kind of work if you love doing it. So
it does, right? When you wake up in the morning feeling good about what you do.
Exactly.
So you do lots of things, and one of them is doing intensives, right?
Yep.
So when you think about intensives, how do you define that? How do you say what you do? What is that?
Yeah, so I think everybody defines EMDR intensives a little bit differently. So I think it's a great first question when people are talking about that to understand what they're talking about. For me, I usually define EMDR intensives as providing longer than typical sessions. So most therapists provide 50 to 60-minute sessions weekly. That's sort of the standard therapeutic approach or interventions time-wise. For intensives, usually we call extended sessions 90 minutes, maybe up to like 2-hour sessions. Our team calls those extended sessions. Anything longer than that, we're usually calling intensive. So those typically mean half-day sessions to full-day sessions of EMDR therapy.
Great. When did you start doing them? And so we'll start there, and then it's more like, how did you start incorporating them into the work that you do?
Yes. So I was doing the typical week-to-week EMDR therapy for many years in my private practice. And I would do extended sessions sometimes too, maybe like 90-minute sessions. But Sadie Smith, who's a co-trainer with me on our EMDR intensives course and retreats, has been doing intensives for 6 or 8 years, I think. And she's the first person I knew that did those. And we were just colleagues in general from other EMDR trainings. And so I used to pick her brain about it. Like, how do you do it? And how do you do it this way? And she has her whole story of how she experimented with it for a while. But she's really the one that piqued my interest in it initially. And the reason for that is because as I was building Scaling Up, our training company, I was realizing that that was becoming a lot more demanding of my time. And so doing a full-time private practice along with running a training company that was actively growing was just not really feasible time-wise for me. And so I ended up sometime during the pandemic, kind of maybe halfway through the pandemic process, my husband and I went on a sabbatical for 2 months where we weren't working. We just went to the beach, we weren't working. And I thought that was a good time for me to like make it happen. Like I'm going to do intensives and, I'm taking time off anyway. That was kind of a natural transition where I started telling my week-to-week clients that I was transitioning my practice to intensives. And so that gave them ample time to transition, maybe schedule an intensive with me, get situated with another therapist. And then I took some time off and I came back and I was just doing intensives. And that was several years ago. I mean, the pandemic, maybe 2 or 3 years ago is when I started doing that. And that was helpful for me to just kind of shift to, this is what I do now. This is what I offer. I don't do the week to week anymore. I was still doing consultations at the time with EMDR therapists as well. So that's like a good way to kind of supplement that time if you're doing intensives and trying to fill the gaps
Mhm.
between your intensives clients. Doing trainings and consultations can be a good way to do that. So I was still doing that at the time. I'm not anymore, but I was then.
Nice. So really, it is like you drew the line in the sand at the beach
Yes.
and said, going forward, this is how I'm going to do this.
Exactly. And it was really kind of a survival. That's a little extreme word, but
No,
for
but
me, I couldn't manage the week to week anymore because I would take a week off to go do trainings or, other things with the business pretty regularly. In addition, my husband's work, he works in a hospital setting. And so he does shift work. So he doesn't do a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so he would have multiple days off at a time where I'm still seeing my week to week clients, and I wanted to be able to take off time with him. So it just got to the point that my schedule personally and professionally, the week to week didn't work anymore. And at that point, it was easy to say, I need to change something. And the intensives worked perfectly for that type of schedule.
that's awesome. How did it go the first few times?
I was very intimidated, but I actually eased into it a little bit. So I started doing extended sessions and even half-day intensives online during the pandemic with some folks just to sort of get my feet wet and see how I liked it. And then I started doing intensives with my current clients. So I was offering it to current clients that I was used to seeing. First to get my feet wet, and that helped build up my confidence and get a little more comfortable with it. So by the time I jumped in with both feet, I was pretty comfortable and it went really, really well. I was shocked at how well it went and how much easier I found it than the week to week.
Right? What's different about how you did it then and how you do it now?
Honestly, it didn't change that much between how I started and how I do it now. The way I do it is I see clients, I do 2 and 3 day intensives, maybe occasionally a 1 day if it's sort of supplemental with what another therapist is doing. So they're still seeing somebody, an EMDR clinician week to week, but they just wanted a jump start on something. But typically it'll be a 2 or 3 day intensive for a specific purpose. We're not targeting everything because 2 and 3 days isn't really enough to do your whole story and dig deep into a lot of the childhood stuff. Usually I would recommend longer intensives, like 3 to 5 day intensives for those, depending on their history. But I would work with a lot of first responders with vicarious trauma that needed to get back to work, or people with specific incidences that happened to them that we're focusing on. So, and I still do that. So more 2 to 3 day intensives. I meet with them over the phone beforehand to sort of screen and make sure that they're a good fit. And then I schedule them out from there. Um, and that is still how I do it now. And then I see them for the full day. We work from 9 until 5. We take an hour-and-a-half lunch break, and then we usually take like 2 coffee breaks in the middle of the day, kind of organically. And that's how I still do it now.
Nice. You started doing them online. Are
I
you still
started
doing
online.
online or
Yep,
in
because I
person?
started during the pandemic. And so I was doing it online. And then when I felt like it was a good time to start doing in person again, I transitioned to that. And then eventually I was fully in person. But yeah, it started online. I was just doing extended sessions online. I wasn't doing a full day online because that was too much for me. I think
Mhm.
other people do it, but for me, I maxed it out at 3 hours for an online session.
Yeah. It's nice. It gives you the opportunity to figure out what do I like about this? How does this work for me?
Yep.
I like that you said you were surprised at how well it went the first time.
Yes, mainly because when you think about it, if you're doing EMDR week to week with people, you know how to do EMDR.
Mhm.
So it's not like you can't do it for a longer period of time. And what I found is With the week to week, it's like you're opening, closing, opening, closing. And so it gets really disjointed, and you need a lot of resourcing to open and close to be able to manage the symptoms in between sessions. But with an intensive, you're closing targets that day, usually more than one target. And so they're experiencing relief. They're not having their symptoms amplified typically. And even if they are, you're going to see them the next day. So you don't really need to spend much time resourcing, because you can contain in the room and resource in the room whatever comes up. And ideally, by the end of the intensive, they've closed out a bunch of targets. So they're feeling a lot better, and their symptoms have been reduced in general anyway. So it's a very different experience than the open close dynamic.
Yeah. And just in doing that work that way, how many connections are being made as you go
Mhm.
through and do that work. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I've noticed that a lot of questions that we get in our community from people wanting to transition is, isn't that exhausting? And, you know, uh, there's like a question about exhaustion for both you and the client. And what I've found is that I think the opening and closing is more exhausting, because when you're with one client the whole day, you can stay so focused on them. You're writing one case note at the end of the day. You're not opening, closing even your own brain about like, okay, I'm focused on this person. Now I have to switch over to this person. Now I have to switch over and remember this person's story. Like, to me, that's way more work and exhausting. And most therapists are seeing clients all day anyway. So seeing someone from 9 to 5 is not different than your average day as a
Right.
therapist. You're just not opening and closing throughout the day, which I just find so much more relaxing for both the client and the therapist.
Yeah. I think you end up with some of that, exhaustion because it's been a day and it's been an
Right.
intense day. But
Yep.
then what you also get is that exhilaration
Mhm.
of all the change and all the amazing work that you've done together,
Yep.
that it's a bubbly, like, woohoo kind of thing.
Absolutely. And the client's able to see the finish line versus with the week to week, they're like, okay, I'm, trudging through this mud every week. And like, where am I going? And what is the end result? Because it can take weeks or months to finish a target with the week to week. And the client can just start to feel like, is this doing anything? Is this working? Versus the intensive, they're experiencing that usually in the same day. So they get to see that end point of where they're heading.
I love the way you put that they can see the finish line, and
Yeah,
that otherwise it feels so amorphous sometimes, like, exactly, are we getting anywhere?
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
just a beautiful way to put it. What have you learned about yourself as a result of working this way? When you made that change, have you done this work? Have you discovered new things about yourself?
Yeah, I think that for me, a couple things I've learned is that there are very creative ways that people can experience healing, and that you can provide healing experiences for people. Because when you're initially taught to be a therapist, most programs are, again, talk therapy week to week. This is how it's situated. And I think partially that's designed that way because that's how insurance is designed. But really, there's a lot of different ways to experience healing. Like, retreats are becoming a lot more common, intensives are becoming more common, and that we can be bold and creative and think outside the box. And also that we can pivot. So if you design your EMDR intensives practice a certain way and then you decide that you want to change it, you can do that. That's okay. Insurance isn't going to cover intensives, which is another topic. But if you have people that want to pay out of pocket, which there are plenty of people that want to do that, you can really get creative with it. So I think for me, just being bold and creative in the ways in which I want to provide healing. But then the other side of it is also asking myself on a personal and professional level, what do I need to make offering therapy enjoyable for me and sustainable for me as the provider? Because we don't ask ourselves that often enough, I don't think. And that's how we're going to create a sustainably enjoyable career, because this job is hard. We're providing a lot for people, and we're we need it to be sustainable in a way that works for us. And so I think intensives offers a diversity for us to be able to maybe burn out less, or just, keep enjoying our jobs in ways that are really exhilarating and exciting.
Yeah, to have a life you don't need a vacation quite so badly from.
Right. Or if you do full-time intensives, you can take a vacation every month
Yeah.
and still pay your bills. I think the whole 9 to 5, 40 hours a week of working is kind of something we've been conditioned to do in the States, whereas there's actually a lot of different ways that we can provide healing and help for people that's creative, that offers us more time off, and allows us the audacity to take more time off that, people in Europe and Canada do all the time, you know?
Yeah, I love that. The audacity. How dare we do this? Well, because it's good for us.
Yeah, my Australian colleagues take, months off a year, and same with my European colleagues. And when they hear that we take like 2 weeks off a year, they're just appalled, And in the States, we're just so conditioned to do it that way. I think intensives just offers us a different lifestyle that still helps people and that still allows us to do the work that we love doing and that we're good at, but allows us to take more time off and rejuvenate ourselves, because our job is hard and we have to give a lot. And in order to keep giving a lot, we also have to take really good care of ourselves. And so I think that's one of my favorite things about intensives that we don't always appreciate maybe in the States, or that we feel like we're allowed to do in US culture.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it too. Because you have to bring so much of yourself to this
Mm,
work that being able to manage yourself in a way that feels really good and fun and exciting for you,
yeah,
that just your clients are going to be drawn to that and grateful for that and able to do better work with you as a result of that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hmm.
But what's the worst thing that's ever happened during an intensive? You
You
had
know,
any bumps?
I was thinking about this question. I haven't had anything bad happen during an intensive. I would say, I've been lucky in that sense, but also I haven't really heard many horror stories. I think there's just a lot more fear of the unknown. Something to think about as you go into intensives is you are with that person all day. And so if you are not enjoying yourself, or if you're finding them to be a tricky client for some reason, or just a client that you're not enjoying working with, which we all have those too, even just for personality reasons or something, you are going to be with them all day. So if there's a lot of countertransference coming up, for example, you're going to have to deal with that countertransference all day, and you're not necessarily going to get a break to go do supervision, or something like that. Or if you have a really tricky clinical piece come up that you don't feel skilled to be able to handle, you're going to have to figure out how to handle it in that moment without doing consultation in between. So with the week to week, you can figure out, okay, how do I get through this hour? And then I can get consultation before I see that client again, or supervision to deal with my countertransference or therapy or something before I see that client again. With the intensive, you can't do that. So my advice to people would be go into intensives being aware enough, having the support, maybe being certified in EMDR or the equivalent of certification. Maybe if you've been doing EMDR for 20 years, but you haven't gotten certified, you have the equivalent of certification, advanced trainings, things like that, but you're not actually certified yet. So having enough experience, it's not something that you just want to jump into without enough experience, supervision, consultation, certification, etc., because you want to be able to handle anything. So in the course that Sadie and I do, one of the first things we talk about is creating your toolkit. And here's our recommendations of what you have in your toolkit so that you're prepared for the dissociation or the attachment stuff or things like that that may come up. So that would be my one piece of advice. And then also trusting your instincts in your screening process. So whatever your screening process is for accepting new clients for an intensive, making sure you feel good about it, but then also trusting your instincts when you're talking to that client. So if the client is coming across in a way that your instincts are like red flag,
Oh,
don't do it, even if you don't know why, trust those instincts and just say no to that client, because otherwise you may find yourself spending multiple days with somebody that wasn't a good fit for you for whatever reason. Again, it could be countertransference or it could be other red flags coming up. I had one client once who I didn't realize there was domestic violence components to his story where he was the aggressor, and it came out during the intensive, and he was angry and sometimes projecting onto me, and quite scary, to be honest, for me. Maybe not for other people, I don't know, but for me, he was quite scary. And then I was quite scared in the room with him. He never threatened me, like nothing happened, but my survival instincts were like, be prepared, be closer, don't be between him and the door, that sort of thing. And I've never experienced that before. And so being with that for 2 full days was a surprise for me, and I handled it and everything was fine. But in hindsight, I wish I hadn't taken on that client, just because it was so much extra work for me to be afraid of him during the session. And so, again, it worked out fine, but that was probably the one moment that I was like, oh, I think I would want to try to screen better for that, because for me, that was more uncomfortable than I would have liked it to be for
Mhm.
someone that I'm spending that much time with.
Yeah. So it did it add a piece to your screening that you're
Yeah, I think I would
doing
have
it
asked
here?
more questions when he was telling me what the issue was, because the issue was more, it was just like it was a hard breakup kind of
Got it.
thing. And so that's what I thought we were processing, which we were, but I think I would have maybe asked a few more questions to try to see if I could understand if there was more DV pieces to it.
Right.
Um, it just didn't occur to me at the time.
Yeah.
So, you're always learning and pivoting. And again, it worked out fine. But I think just like I think the other thing is, with private practice, just week to week sessions, you're still getting clients like that. You're still screening clients. You're still deciding who you're going to take on and why, and whether that works for you. So just figure out what types of clients you want to see and not see, and why. And then just make sure you're putting that into your screening process. I don't think I would have thought of this, because I was never in that situation in a week to week case anyway. It was just kind of a unique situation that I don't think most people would have probably anticipated. And so you just learn from it, and then you just screen a little bit differently next time. But I do have somebody once that I was screening who just screamed red flags to me, and it was more of an energy thing, not so much what she was saying, but just like the pushiness and the like urgency in which she was talking, and something about the way that she was talking about her previous therapists and things like that, that I was just like, this isn't,
Not a good fit.
something about this. Yeah. And so I sent her, I always send people different referral names of others to reach out to,
Mhm.
um, for those therapists to decide if it's a good fit for them or not. But that'd be my one piece of advice for folks, is just think about what you want and who you want to be in the room with all day, and
Mhm.
whether that's going to be a good fit for you.
Because it does become a very intimate experience. You're with
Exactly.
them and it is intense and
Yep.
you're spending a lot of time with them.
Yep.
Yeah, and so much of it goes back to the screening
Yep.
and being able to trust your gut when the bells are going off, going, maybe not. So,
Exactly.
and having a system to gracefully refer
Oh yeah.
and offer. And so
Yep.
that's beautiful. Thanks for talking about that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can you tell us about your work and how you use the workshops for clinicians who are interested in doing intensive? That's another one of the things you do, right?
You're saying the courses?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so at Scaling Up, we're a mental health training company. So we train people in the basic training, along with other trauma interventions, and then advanced trainings as well. So one of our advanced trainings is the group EMDR protocol, the IGTP by Dr. Ignacio Herrero. We do EMDR refreshers, but we also teach an EMDR intensives course. So we have that on demand, and then we do a discounted live version about twice a year. And then we also have retreats, because we know that the business building side of things can be really tricky for therapists, because turns out we don't get taught that in grad
Nope.
school. Yet about 50% of us go on to building our own businesses and private practices, is what the research says. And we don't necessarily know how to do that. And the intensives model is even more unique, because there's a different degree of marketing because you can't use insurance and things like that. And so actually today and this weekend, we have a business building retreat here in Lake Tahoe area that I'm going to after the podcast, where we just get together and we not only come up with your strategy for how you want to build your intensives business, but we also implement it. So they're reaching out to clients, reaching out to their network, starting to get referrals this weekend, putting their website together, all that stuff while we're together.
That's got to be exciting.
It is. Yeah. And it's really just fun. Like we eat together, we laugh, we get to know each other really well, and we're in a beautiful environment. So it's really fun.
And I think there's a piece with therapists. I mean, we're trained, I almost want to say brainwashed into this little box, and this is how you have to be in the world. And I have found it really hard to break out of that part.
Yes.
And the marketing piece, and even like, is it okay to do that?
Right.
Is almost like, is it okay to be successful doing these kind of things?
Yes.
And, it's more than okay. And being able to put yourself out in the world is something that you need to master. And we're not taught that at all.
No, we're not. And it's typically very uncomfortable for therapists. I know when I first put my private practice together, I hired somebody to help me build my website. And they were like, what would be really useful is to put a video on there. And I remember being like, no, there's no way I'm putting a video together. I was so turned off by it. I didn't do it. And now if you get on my website, I've got videos all over the place because I've learned how to become comfortable with it. And so there's always pivoting and evolving, and that may or may not be for you. But I think the piece for me about marketing that I have learned over time from running a business or a couple businesses is that if you believe in what you're providing, not just believe in it like I need to sell it, but you actually are providing something of quality to people that is useful for people, then it's not difficult to sell it. It's really, the marketing is about making sure that people know that it's available so that the people that would benefit from and want your services, want to pay you for it because it's the right fit for them, can find you. If you don't put yourself out there, they cannot find you. And there's so many different ways to talk about it. You can talk very sincerely about what you offer. When I talk about our intensives course or a retreat or basic trainings, it's really easy for me to talk about it in an excited way because I love doing it. And the people that receive it love receiving it. We get great feedback from our programs. And so we're not trying to convince people to take our courses that are not the right fit. Those that are the right fit are going to be like, oh, tell me more. That might be a good fit for me. And those that don't want it are going to not want it. And that's fine. We're not trying to convince anybody of anything. We're trying to just make people aware of what we offer so that those that are attracted to it are going to know about it. So I think if you change your perspective about your intensives in that way, if you're providing postpartum EMDR intensives for people who have had miscarriages or losses or infertility issues or things like that, if that's your specialty area, those that are struggling with that want quick results are going to want your services, and they're going to need to know about it. And so just talk about it the way that you would talk to a friend about what you do, that you're not selling it to. And then you're not trying to convince anybody of anything. So it's not sleazy, gross sales. Yeah, it's not like that.
Yeah, it really is. Imposter syndrome is one of those things that gets talked about a lot. And it's one of those things that it's not so much being an imposter. It's different to have to put yourself out in the world, because if you don't, people can't find you.
Exactly. I kind of see it as, and I tell this to clients too, I say, this is who I am and this is what I offer. This is what it's about. And I'll answer your questions about it. And it's either going to be the right fit for you or it's not. And if it's not, I take no offense to that, because the research shows that if the therapist is a good fit for the client, they're going to get better results. Exactly. If your personalities match up. And if you think about when you meet a new friend or colleague, they may not fit for you because there's just personality differences, but they're going to be best friends with somebody else. And it's not offensive. It's just the way that it is. And our clients are the same way. Clients are not going to be the best fit for every therapist and vice versa. And that's okay. We don't have to take offense to it. So I just tell that to clients. I say, from this conversation, you're either going to be drawn to me or you're not. And that's okay. If you're not drawn to me because our personalities don't align, or I'm not offering the type of services that you want, if you don't want EMDR therapy or you don't want intensives, that's fine. I'm happy to give you a referral list.
Right.
So that way the clients don't feel like they have to take care of you, because they shouldn't
No,
feel like they
no,
have to
no.
take care of you and your feelings around whether or
Right.
not they choose you. I just say, you should be interviewing 3 to 5 therapists and tell them, I'm looking for the right therapist. I'm interviewing a couple people. I want to pick who's right for me, and I want to get to know you a little bit. And then you interview all of them, and then you pick the one that you think is the best fit. And then you say, thank you to the others. Good day. In the same way that you're going to get second opinions with doctors and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be so personal. It feels personal, but it doesn't need to be so personal. And we can clearly communicate with people. It doesn't need to be a big deal. And so that, I think, helps it also feel less salesy, because I'm not trying to convince you to work with me. I'm actually, for some people, saying maybe this isn't a good fit for you. And
Right.
you get better results if you find the therapist that's the right fit for you. So you get to decide if that's me or not. And I'm not trying to convince you it's me, because that's
Right.
not going to be a good result in the end,
It doesn't feel good either. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I tell clients that finding a therapist is like finding a good pair of shoes. Because
Yeah.
you're going to have to walk a few miles together, and think about
Yes.
what it feels like when your shoes don't fit.
Yes. I
They
love
don't feel
that
good,
analogy. That's
right?
perfect.
So if it's not a
Yeah.
good fit, kick those shoes off to the curb and find something that fits well. So,
Exactly. And you're going to have more fruitful experiences in your intensives with clients if you have the right fit. So, and the people that are the right fit for you are going to be drawn to you if you
yeah,
approach it that way.
yeah. And like you said, putting yourself on your website and having those kind of videos.
Mhm.
I had a friend tell me years ago, you should really put videos on your website, Celeste. And I'm still sitting here going, yeah, I need to do that. Right. But
Yes.
it lets people know who you are, and it gives them that feel of, oh yeah, she does look like a good fit for me. I think we do good
Yes.
work together.
I
And
tell people that the videos are actually a screening tool, because if people can watch your video on your website, they're either going to be drawn to you or they're not.
yeah,
And if they're not even going to schedule the consult with you. So they're not wasting your time with a free consult screening process, because they've already decided, like, oh, I don't like their voice, or I don't like their vibes. Like, it doesn't fit for me.
or they
Great.
look like my mother-in-law, or
Exactly. Who
right?
knows?
Who
It could be
knows,
anything. It could be anything. And you don't want those clients anyway. You want
right?
them to go to somebody else. And then those that are going to be a good fit for you are going to be drawn to you on those videos.
Mhm.
And they're going to schedule the consultation, and move forward from there. So I find it helps a lot in finding the right client. It's not so much of a salesy thing as it is helping the clients decide if you are a good fit for them before they even schedule their screening consult with you.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. So they're like self-screening before they even get to you.
Yep. And the
So,
way that I do my videos are really simple. I just line up my camera. I just open Zoom just like this, line up the camera, make sure the lighting is good enough. I don't have any special speakers or anything like that. No special lighting. It just looks just like this. And then I hit record and I close the camera so that I'm not seeing myself. And then I just pretend like I'm talking to people on Zoom.
nice.
And you just be yourself. So, hey, I'm Kelly Smyth-Dent. I'm an LCSW. I offer a type of treatment called EMDR Intensives. Da, 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 da. You talk for 2 or 3 minutes, just like if you were talking to a person. I imagine I'm talking to a person. And then thanks so much. Schedule a consult if you'd like to work with me, and let me know if you have questions. I'd love to hear from you.
Right. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yep. And then you can just open QuickTime on your Apple computer. You can trim both ends of it. So you don't have to do any sort of video editing so that it starts and stops at the right time. Save it, upload. It can literally be done in like 3 minutes. And I don't retake it unless I like really fumble over my words a lot. I just do the first, video and just make it
Nice.
authentically you, because that's what they need to see. It's not showy. It's not, fancy. It's just, this is who I am. This is what you can expect when you do a session with me, because this is me. This is how I dress. This is how I look.
Right.
It's going to work or not work for you. You can
No
decide.
dancing, no singing, no
It's
special
nothing
effects.
special. You don't need special backgrounds, music, whatever. Just be yourself.
Right. I think part of it is if you're doing something new, that you'll stop yourself before you even start.
Yes.
And it isn't that hard. And
Yep. I had a business coach early on teach me, she would always say, massive imperfect action. If you don't do it, it's never going to be perfect, but if you don't put it out there, it's definitely not going to happen. And
right.
so you just need massive imperfect action. And that really, something about that just helped me let go of any perfectionism and just post it. And the amount of things, especially at the beginning of business building, that we just messed up or wasn't right or wasn't that good was a ton, but it didn't matter because you just got to get it out there, and you can always change a video later. You can always update something or change it or pivot. Like, nothing is set in stone. You can set up your EMDR intensive practice or structure however you want it, your cancellation policy, etc. And then something happens and you want to change the policy, you just change it moving forward. That's all it is. You just pivot. It's no big deal.
Yeah, because the more you learn, the more you know, the more you're going to do it a little different. It doesn't have to be stuck the way you start.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Probably the most important thing is to start.
Yes, you just got to get it out there.
Right?
Yep, and you can update, pivot as you go.
Cool. I love so you're saying pivot. I love that you're reminding me of the thing from Friends where they had to pivot with a sofa.
Pivot!
Right?
Yes.
So now I'm going to hear that voice all day. Right? But that's what we do. We pivot.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just human nature. I mean, our personal circumstances change, our professional circumstances change, our desires, our needs change, our capacity changes. Like, we're dynamic humans. We know that as therapists. We talk to clients about it all the time. So the more in touch we are with ourselves, the more we're going to pivot ourselves in our practice. And we need to be in touch with that. And we can do that. It's our business. We can do whatever we want with our business.
Right. And then we get to model that too. We're not just talking about it, we do this.
Exactly.
Right. It's so exciting. What's the most unusual thing you've tried that worked?
When I thought about this question, the story of I went to Ethiopia many years ago before the pandemic, and we were training social workers there in the refugee camps, how to do EMDR, and specifically how to do our assist and our group EMDR interventions, because that was what was going to be the most useful for them in the camps. So we were training people, and part of the training process was we were providing the service, the group protocol to adolescents in the camps. And so we trained the social workers and we were providing the services all together to the adolescences. And the environment's so different when you're providing services in a refugee camp. It's not like there's a therapy office and a quiet space where you're just gonna go and do so. No, it's like goats walking into the room, and
I love it.
Open air gymnasiums and loud cars going by and stuff. And so we were in an open air gymnasium. We were providing the group intervention, which you can do in an intensive format. We actually recommend it in an intensive format. So we provided 6 group protocol interventions over the course of 2 full days in an intensive format to these kids. And we were in an open air gymnasium. It starts thundering and lightning, and there's cars everywhere, and there's wind blowing, and there's goats walking around. And I was just like, this is not going to work. This is crazy. And it was wild to me to see how everybody just ignored the distractions and they really just sunk into the experience. And it just helped me realize again that healing can look different for different people. Your environment doesn't need to be this perfectly quiet office space.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great when you can have that, but you can provide EMDR and group interventions. You can do intensives. You can do them in open air gymnasiums during a lightning storm with wind blowing and animals everywhere, and it still works. So that was pretty wild learning experience for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've done it in parking lots and
Yes, there's so many different
forever.
ways to do it. We learned that during the pandemic, people didn't think you could do EMDR online. Turns out you can, and it works well. And people will be in closets and in their cars and, all sorts of different places, and it still works.
Yeah, in a box with a fox wherever.
Exactly. Yeah, you just figure out how to make it work, and you adapt to what you meet people where they are and what they
Yeah,
need, and that works too.
I mean, it really did. The pandemic was horrible and also wonderful in the way it pushed us out of our box
Yeah.
to discover new ways. And I was thrilled. I had done an intensive actually with a colleague who wanted to be my guinea pig. And it
Mm.
was 2 weeks before the pandemic,
Oh, wow.
before COVID hit. And it was like, phew, at least I know this works online. Yeah,
Yes,
right.
exactly. Exactly.
And the things that we wouldn't have learned that it forced us to learn.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that hopefully we can carry the delight of that discovery forward in the work that we do, because it taught us a lot of stuff.
I agree. Yeah, there's this funny balance between, I think, being bold in your approaches to providing healing to people, and also making sure that if you're doing something new that hasn't been done before, that you're also doing research on it and making sure it's evidence-based too. Because I know there's a lot of like new interventions coming out and do EMDR this way and adapted protocols. But if there's no research behind it, I'd be pretty cautious about who you're learning from, and make sure that there's research on it and that people are actually seeing that there's evidence to it and not just anecdotal, like this works and give me your money for this training. Because there's a lot of that going around these days too. So you need to be pretty discerning.
Exactly the word that came to my mind, being discerning about it.
Mhm.
Because yeah, the protocol's there for a reason, and it's
Yeah.
a great. Anytime I get tempted to drift off of it, it's like, nope, come on back.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a bunch of great advanced protocols out there that have research behind it,
Absolutely.
and so you want to try to stick to those when you can, and be discerning when you're taking advanced trainings, and
Yeah.
thinking outside the box. If you have a new great idea, start trying it out, but do research on your own ideas too. So that you're not then starting to advertise, well, you can change this and you can change this, and kind of moving in a direction that might not be as useful for folks when there's no evidence behind what you're doing too.
Yeah. And even within that, there are so many ways to be creative,
Yes.
right?
It's like
Bring,
responsible creativity.
yes, I like that. Yes, absolutely. And bringing the arts into it and
Yeah.
music and your therapy goat who wanders in,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Yep.
Um, so that's kind of like the most unusual thing,
Yep.
right? Um, and in terms of age groups, as far as what's intensive, that you just talked about working with a bunch of adolescents, um, and it almost seems to me like how um, whatever's comfortable works. What's your experience?
Yeah. I think uh, you could do probably most age groups with intensives, as long as it's designed in a way that meets that person developmentally and energetically where they are. So with the group intensives, we would do an hour of the group intensive, and then we take an hour break. And then we'd meet again for an hour, and then we'd take lunch. And then we would meet again for another hour after lunch. So it wasn't like it was 9 to 5 consistently all day, because
Right.
adolescents wouldn't respond well to that. And the group protocol doesn't call for that either. So, and I've heard of, there was a group in Colombia that was providing group EMDR intensives to kids, young kids. I mean, in the pictures, they look like they're 6, 7, 8, after a landslide. And it was so cute. They called it a camp. And so they would do the group EMDR protocol for an hour, and then they would play games and do jump rope and different things for an hour. And all the EMDR therapists were dressed up as clowns,
Nice.
and they had like this really fun, like decorated gymnasium, and they just made it like a camp style situation with therapy infused in it. And they were really young kids, and they responded really well to it. So I think you can do it in lots of creative ways, like involve sand tray, involve yoga, go for walks outside, And so with kids, I think it's just about they can't sit in a chair for a long period of
Right.
time. Maybe they can for an hour. So maybe you do an hour of EMDR and then you go for a walk. Maybe you get a snack. Maybe you do some sand tray. Maybe you do some yoga. And then you do another hour of EMDR, and then you do something else. And you can
Mhm.
still do that for the whole day as long as you're keeping their attention and mixing in a lot of different modalities with the EMDR.
Yeah. You can go a long way. And again, there's that creativity. There are those different
Exactly.
aspects.
Maybe there's a nap time in there, you know? I mean,
Right.
you can like get creative with it. Think about school, they have like these sections of time where they do different things. You could design it like that with young kids. So you can, again, get really creative with it and mix different evidence-based, ideas with each other. It doesn't have to just be EMDR all day, every day. It could be that, but there's a lot of evidence-based modalities that you can mix in with the EMDR.
Absolutely. And it's so integrative and supportive of each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Intensives have really taken off in the last couple of years. What do you think is driving that change? Because you're obviously one of the drivers in this.
Right. I think people are feeling empowered. I think therapists are feeling empowered by the idea that they can get away from the 9 to 5, 40-hour a week, all day therapy thing that honestly is not sustainable for a lot of therapists for reasons we've talked about, with just the amount of giving we have to do and, exposure to other people's stories. We need time to recover and
Right.
replenish ourselves before we keep giving. And so I think the more people are talking about vicarious trauma and burnout and things like that, the more therapists are like, yeah, this is not sustainable for me. I mean, I noticed that when I opened my private practice, I was like, wait, what if I'm going through grief, or what if I'm, sick or postpartum or whatever? Like, I'm not getting paid for this time, and I'm not going to be able to give to people when I'm depleted. So this isn't a sustainable business model. Like it was very apparent to me pretty early on in my private practice that was the case, which is part of the reason I started scaling up, was to have this other side related business in addition to my private practice. And then it just became both for a while. So I think people are kind of realizing that. And then also, I think clients are loving intensives. If they can afford it, and if they can pay for it, which a lot more people can pay for it than people realize. And I mean, think about all the retreats, like people pay for travel and retreats and stuff all the time. It's a similar cost. So people can afford it, and there's a demand.
Mhm.
And so I think the more therapists realize people will pay for it and there's a demand, it's actually a better lifestyle choice. And also their clients get faster results, which is just more fun for the therapist. So I think there's a lot of advantages that therapists are realizing there exists, and the more support there is to help them learn how to do therapy in this way, like our courses and our community, the more it helps empower them to feel like they can do it.
Yeah. So, when you think about those people who are just starting out and sticking their toe in the water of intensive, what's your advice? What are your suggestions? What do you think is essential for them to know?
I think the probably 2 or 3 essential areas would be: one, as I mentioned, build up your toolbox.
Mhm.
Don't go into intensives not prepared skill wise. So make sure you know how to handle anything that comes up in the room, especially dissociation, ego, state stuff, attachment things, like, all that stuff that's a little bit can be trickier to navigate, parts work, stuff like that. You want to make sure that you can handle any part that kind of hijacks you in the room, or dissociation that kind of hijacks the process, so that you know how to navigate that without needing consultation in that moment. So that's number one, is make sure your toolbox is full and that your skill set is ready to be able to handle intensives. Secondly, I would say get the support that you need, whether that's a course, community, a consultant, all the above, a retreat. Make sure that you have the support you need to get it started and off the ground, because just like how when you started your private practice, it's not like you had a full private practice right away. Intensives are going to be the same. It's going to be a slow build, and then over time you'll have a full practice. So what does that look like? What is that process going to be? How am I going to handle that transition? Thinking through those kinds of things. And then the third thing I would say is figuring out for yourself personally and professionally what you want. There's a lot of what we do at the beginning of the retreat, which is my favorite part of the retreat, is helping people really stand in stating what they want. What do you want your schedule to look like? How much money do you want to make? What types of clients do you want to work with? And really, and the amount of times that we'll listen to somebody in the group say what they want, and then the next person will say what they want. And they're like, actually, I want that. I didn't realize I could say I wanted to work 3 days a week. I thought I had to say 5 days a week. And just breaking down some of that conditioning that we
Yeah.
all experience, meaning this is what society tells you you should be doing. You know, that's what the conditioning is you should be retiring at 60. You should be working 40 hours a week. You should be taking 2 weeks of vacation a year. You should be doing this or that. And if you're not, you're lazy, you're slacking off, you're not doing enough, you know, and that's what US society tells us.
Right.
And again, if you talk to Canadians, Australians, Europeans, that's not how they work or live. They think it's crazy that we do that. And so that's where you're like, this is US societal conditioning that we need to challenge and try to work through so that we can ask
Absolutely.
ourselves, what do I want? And a lot of therapists will struggle with that a bit because they don't feel like they have the permission to
Yeah.
say what they really want, and they feel like they're not helping enough people, when in fact the more filled up you are, the more you can then help people if you want to. So you can offer intensives X number of days a week, X number of weeks a month, and you can offer pro bono, you know, services if you want,
Absolutely.
whatever. I mean, there's unlimited amount. You can serve on the board of a nonprofit. You can, I mean, whatever. There's lots that you can do to help people in the midst of also having a good work-life balance and schedule and decent pay. That's okay. You can have both, you know, and we don't oftentimes feel like that's okay for lots of different reasons. And so
Mhm.
that's where the third thing I would say is to get in touch with yourself, try to ask yourself what you want and figure out what obstacles and barriers are there that could be societal conditioning, could be our
Yeah.
own traumas, could be a messaging, money, you know, there's so many different things. But until you ask yourself that and figure out what might be blocking you, what's uncomfortable, then you can figure out what can help you overcome that. What do you need to go to therapy, do your own EMDR work and kind of dig into that? Do you need to go to a retreat, a coach, whatever? I mean, there's lots of different resources out there, but don't let those things block you from having the most fulfilling life that you can have. And it starts with asking yourself what you want and having somebody help you dig into that.
Yeah. And I think it takes a certain amount of bravery to claim it,
Oh yeah, big time, big time.
right?
Spent a lot
I
of time
think
on this at the retreat.
mhm. There's, and of course, I don't want to limit it to just women, but I think that's a challenge that women have.
Oh yeah,
And
well, conditioning and societal
yeah,
messaging towards women is different than men. We know that. So,
yeah. And how wonderful that you're doing that wonderful work in the world, not just with clients, because of course that's important, but the people who help the people who need us, right?
yes, helping the helpers needs to be
Yes, absolutely.
specialty. And I love that because you know it has a ripple effect
Absolutely.
into the people that they're helping too, in the same way that we know if we help a client, it has a ripple effect generationally with their own children and their grandchildren and all of that. The healthier you make an individual, the healthier you're making all of those following generations.
Absolutely. Um, Thank you for doing such beautiful work in the world.
Yeah, thank you for wanting to talk about it. I could talk about this all day. I love it.
Yeah, me too. But I don't think they'll listen to us all day.
I
So,
know,
right,
unfortunately.
right. But so we'll say goodbye on this aspect, but with the delightful notion that it is so exciting and there's so much good going on in the world, and you're a part of that. So thank you.
Yeah, you are too. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and
It
we need to
is.
remember there's a lot of good stuff going on in the world.
And
this
there's
is
enough
part of
need
it.
in the world. There's enough need, enough people need help that there could not be enough intensives going around. You know, it's not a saturated market like some people think.
Yeah, I think that when you're in it, you think it is. I mean,
Yeah,
when I started doing them, nobody was doing them.
right.
And I had mentioned in the previous one that somebody said to me, you probably should talk to your board and make sure that's okay.
Mhm.
Right? Like I was doing something illegal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it is, it's breaking out of the box. It's thinking about it a little differently. And it really is, if you can heal faster and well, what a gift that is.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
all right. Well, Kelly, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Really appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too.